April 24th, 1969, Cambodia. The kind of morning where even the birds decide not to speak. That was the day Jerry Shriver walked into the jungle and never came back. I've replayed that morning 1,000 times in my head. The sky was heavy, almost bruised, the air thick with monsoon moisture. And somewhere out there, beneath a canopy older than any map, waited the most feared enemy headquarters in the region. My name is Sergeant Daniel Hale, U.S. Army Special Forces, Recon Team Sidewinder MACV SOG. I was 24 years old, running black missions the U.S. government insisted did not exist. If you've never heard of SOG, that's the point. We lived in shadows, operated without uniforms, and crossed borders we weren't supposed to cross. Laos, Cambodia. Denied sanctuaries where the enemy hid entire armies out of reach of conventional forces. And in that hidden war, one man carved his name into legend. Sergeant First Class Jerry M. Shriver. Mad Dog, they called him, not because he was reckless, but because he was relentless. A man who carried 3 pistols, a Stoner 63, and the kind of silence that made even veterans uneasy. He had over 1,000 days in the field, more than any American in SOG. Some men prayed before missions. Shriver didn't. He simply nodded once, checked his weapons, and vanished into the trees like he belonged there. The Montagnards loved him. The NVA feared him. Radio Hanoi put a $10,000 bounty on his head, a fortune back then. And enemy documents warned troops to avoid the tall American who kills silently. That was Jerry. But legends don't appear out of nowhere. They are forged slowly by fire, steel, and the kind of darkness only war can teach. Back in early 1969, intelligence started pouring in about a massive underground headquarters hidden somewhere near the Sre Pre region of Cambodia. Intercepted NVA communications mentioned a strategic nerve center, protected by shock troops and concealed by tunnels older than French colonial maps. Washington wanted eyes on it. SOG was told to find it, and Shriver was the first to volunteer. I still remember the night before insertion. The camp was quiet, except for distant mortar thumps and the soft humming of generators. Shriver sat alone at a wooden table, cleaning his Stoner with slow, deliberate motions. No nerves, no fear. Just that calm, unreadable stare that seemed to look straight through the world. He noticed me standing there and said, "Hale, in this war you don't measure a man by how he fights. You measure him by how far he's ready to go." I didn't understand what he meant, not until the next morning. We launched from Quan Loy CIDG camp just after dawn. The air was heavy with the smell of fuel and wet earth. The rotors beat against the sky, kicking up red dust that clung to our uniforms. Shriver stood near the door, wearing that ridiculous blue velvet smoking jacket of his, another of his strange quirks. Nobody else could have pulled it off, but on him, it almost made sense. Our team was small. 3 Americans, 9 Montagnards, 1 Cambodian scout, all armed to the teeth, all knowing we probably wouldn't return. As we crossed the Cambodian border, the terrain changed sharply. The forest thickened into a green wall so dense sunlight could barely squeeze through. Humidity wrapped around us like a wet blanket. The smell of rot, mud, and old war hung in the air. The pilot called back, 2 minutes to LZ, quiet drop. We touched down in a small clearing barely large enough for the Huey skids, The bird lifted off instantly. No support, no gunships, just silence falling back over the jungle as the sound of rotors faded away. And that's when it hit me. That crushing awareness every SOG man felt the moment the helicopter left. You're alone. Truly alone. Behind enemy lines with no backup, except the men standing next to you, and whatever courage you carried inside your chest. Shriver gave a hand signal. We moved. No talking, no noise, just the wet, muffled sound of boots sinking into mud and the distant calls of unseen animals. We navigated through layers of vines, broken branches, and old French fighting positions overgrown by 20 years of jungle. Hours passed. The deeper we moved, the more unnatural the silence became. Even the insects seemed to quiet down. A bad sign in places like this. Around mid-afternoon, our Cambodian scout paused, kneeled, and pointed at the ground. Fresh boot prints, several dozen, heading west. Shriver studied them, then looked back at us with that subtle, chilling nod. We had found something. Something big. Something dangerous. We pushed forward. The jungle changed the deeper we moved. The trees grew taller, thicker, some wide enough to swallow a jeep whole. A cathedral of tangled branches stretched above us, turning daylight into a washed-out green darkness that made everything feel colder and older. Shriver raised a fist. We stopped instantly. He crouched, touched the soil, rubbed the grains between his fingers, then he lifted one leaf from the ground, a broad, wet leaf with a clean boot edge pressed into it. "Hours old," he whispered. The yards exchanged looks. Not fear, respect. They had hunted with Shriver for months, and if his face tightened even slightly, they knew something deadly was close. We kept moving, more carefully now. Every twig snap, every shift in the wind felt like a warning. Somewhere in the distance, a single metallic clang echoed. Not natural, not random. Shriver turned to me. "That's a hatch, or a cooking grate, which means we're close to something underground." His voice stayed low, controlled, but his eyes sharpened. Jerry wasn't excited often, but when he was, it meant one of two things. We were about to uncover something valuable, or step into something lethal. We slowed our pace, spacing out, weapons up, moving as if the whole forest was watching us. The ground dipped slightly ahead. Shriver raised his hand. A clearing. Small, too small. About 20 meters across, with grass trampled by recent activity. A few old ration tins half buried in mud, a broken bamboo pole, and the faint smell of smoke. Shriver signaled for us to circle the edges. The Montagnards moved silently, their eyes scanning every branch, every shadow. My heart hammered against my ribs. Every SOG man learns early, if a clearing looks abandoned, it's not. Shriver slowly approached the center, stepping only where he could see bare ground. I scanned to my right and felt my stomach drop. A tripwire, thin as spider silk, hidden under leaves. I opened my mouth, but the jungle beat me to it. A violent snap sounded behind us. "Contact!" The world exploded. RPG fire ripped through the trees, the blast slamming into the ground with a shock wave that punched the air out of my lungs. Automatic gunfire tore through the clearing, bright muzzle flashes bursting from spider holes just 10 meters away. Shriver didn't hesitate. He pivoted, dropped to one knee, and unleashed a controlled burst from his Stoner 63, cutting down the first wave of NVA troops before they could even rise fully from their tunnels. The Montagnards fired back in a fierce, coordinated arc, their war cries echoing across the clearing. The air turned into chaos. Dust, smoke, shredded leaves, and the metallic sting of hot brass showering the ground. I crawled behind a fallen tree, keyed my radio, and shouted into the handset, "Sidewinder to Covey, we are in heavy contact. Approx 40 enemy. Request immediate extraction." Static. Then more static. Then nothing. They were jamming us. Shriver slid beside me, breathing hard but controlled. "They've been waiting for us. This isn't random," he reloaded with a snap. "They're protecting something close." Another wave came. NVA soldiers bursting from camouflage pits, grenades in hand. Shriver threw a claymore, slammed it into the mud, and yanked the clacker. The explosion wiped out half the attackers, sending dirt and shrapnel soaring through the air. But more were coming. The jungle shook with the sound of movement. Dozens, maybe more. We were being swallowed. Shriver motioned for a quick break contact. We sprinted toward the eastern tree line, leaping over roots, ducking incoming fire, breathing in mud, smoke, and humid air that tasted like burning leaves. About 100 meters in, the gunfire thinned. Montagnards regrouped around us, panting, wounded, but standing. Shriver held up a hand. His gaze was fixed ahead, on a mound of earth barely visible under a carpet of vines. We approached it, slowly, weapons raised. The mound wasn't natural. It was shaped, built, maintained. Shriver knelt and brushed away the leaves. A wooden trapdoor, a tunnel entrance. Old, large, well-carved, reinforced from the inside. Exactly what we were looking for. Shriver exhaled, not with relief, with certainty. "This is it," he whispered. "Their headquarters, their nerve center." He looked at me, eyes fierce, unwavering. Whatever we just fought was only the first layer. The jungle fell silent again, the same unnatural silence we'd felt before the ambush. But this time, it felt deeper, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. The air around the tunnel mound felt heavier, as if the jungle itself knew what waited below. Shriver stood over the concealed entrance, studying it in complete silence. The Montagnards watched him the same way soldiers watch a man who has survived too many battles to count, with a mixture of awe and fear. I stepped closer. "What do you think?" I whispered. Shriver didn't look at me. He ran his hand slowly along the wooden frame of the hidden hatch, testing the grain, the soil, the airflow. "They've been using this for months. Probably connects to a command site, maybe more." Then he rose, slung the stoner over his shoulder, and scanned the trees. And that's when we heard it. A distant thump, then another, the unmistakable cadence of NVA boots moving through thick brush. Shriver's jaw tightened. They're regrouping. We hit a forward outpost. The main force is coming. He wasn't guessing. Jerry never guessed. He knew. "Prepare to move," he ordered quietly. "We're breaking east. Keep your spacing. No noise." We formed a staggered line and began easing through the undergrowth, stepping around roots and bamboo traps, each breath measured and controlled. But within 2 minutes, the jungle erupted again. Automatic fire hammered from our left flank, disciplined, accurate bursts. The Montagnards dove behind trees, returning fire urgently but skillfully. More shots from the rear, then the right. We were boxed in. Shriver grabbed the radio handset from my vest. "Sidewinder to Covey, do you read? We are engaged. Heavy NVA presence. Need extraction at grid." Static. More static. Then distant artillery thuds. Not ours. Walking towards our position. He tossed the handset back to me. "They're bracketing our location, moving us where they want us." I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Every direction we turned, muzzle flashes blinked between the trees like angry fireflies. And then a break. A small opening in the canopy ahead. Shriver saw it first. "That's our window. Move." We sprinted, zigzagging through trees as bullets snapped past our legs and shoulders. Branches tore at our uniforms. The ground shook with incoming fire. A grenade detonated behind us, the blast pressure slamming into my back like a physical shove. Still, Shriver pushed forward. He didn't slow, didn't break. Every step he took carved a path for us. We burst through the tree line and hit the open killing field. A shallow clearing, cratered, smoking, scattered with half-buried bamboo stakes and abandoned equipment. This was the outer perimeter of Quan Loy's approach, exactly where Shriver's final mission took place. The same place the history books mention. The same place where Jerry M. Shriver was last seen alive. Shriver stopped, scanning the terrain. Machine gun fire erupted from a bunker to our right. The rounds tore through the grass, stitching the soil with dirt geysers. Shriver pointed to the tree line ahead. "That MG has us pinned. I'll draw it. You move the yards across. No hesitation." His voice was calm. Too calm. That tone only meant one thing. He knew he wasn't coming back. I grabbed his arm. "Jerry!" But he cut me off. "Get them home." He gave a quick nod to the Montanards, a gesture they understood immediately. Some bowed their heads. Some touched his shoulder gently in passing. All respected him more than words could show. Then, Shriver stepped out from cover. He charged toward the machine gun nest, firing the stoner in controlled bursts as he ran. NVA soldiers swarmed from concealed pits, but he cut through them, moving like a man with purpose carved into his bones. I watched him advance through smoke and dust, his silhouette flickering between flashes of gunfire. He made it halfway across the clearing. Then the return fire intensified. 2, maybe 3 positions opening up at once. He didn't slow. He kept firing, kept pushing, kept leading. That was the last time I ever saw him. The gunfire thickened, swallowing his figure in a wall of smoke and dirt. One final burst of rounds hammered the soil around him. Then everything went still. The Montanards pulled me back toward the tree line. We were forced to retreat as artillery closed in. I kept looking over my shoulder, waiting, hoping for a glimpse of him. But the jungle never gave him back. Not that day. Not ever. Days later, a recovery team swept the battlefield. They found shell casings, shredded foliage, blood trails, but no sign of Jerry M. Shriver. Missing in action. Presumed killed. A warrior who walked into history and never walked out. And yet, even now, every man who served with him remembers the same thing. He didn't die running. He didn't die hiding. He didn't die waiting. He died moving toward the enemy, protecting the men who trusted him, fighting a fight he refused to lose. A soldier feared by the enemy, respected by his own, and remembered by anyone who ever walked the jungles of Vietnam. Jerry M. Shriver, Mad Dog, Master Sergeant, U.S. Army Special Forces. Never recovered, never forgotten.